amplification you need? Well, first of all, thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you being here. We just had a very long 4.5, 5-hour conversation with all the university presidents that we'd gathered here today. We had a little over 50 presidents representing all elements of the division, whole cross-section of Division I athletics. We've intentionally scheduled and structured the retreat to be in 3 components. The first one being about financial sustainability of the enterprise and how we keep our resources focused on student-athlete success and the collegiate model. Tomorrow we're going to also then talk about integrity issues and how we can make sure that all of the processes that we have in place serve to build the integrity and maintain the integrity of the collegiate model of athletics. And then our third piece, we're going to spend a lot of time in the afternoon talking about academic success and how we continue to promote the academic success of our student athletes. So today we had what I would describe as an extremely open, frank, robust conversation about the state of Division I and about how we can focus resources on those things that really matter in promoting, again, that collegiate model. That included a conversation about how we can increase support for student athletes with a clear, unequivocal call for all of us to take some direct steps in a very short period of time. There's an extreme sense of urgency among all the presidents, and certainly with me as well, that we make some steps not just in a few areas, but across very important areas, and we do that in a matter of months and weeks, not years. We have challenges that we have to get on top of. We spoke at length about whether or not we wanted to expand the support that we provide student athletes for what's called full cost of attendance in the nature of grant and aids, and there's a interest in and a demand for us to bring back to our board of directors in the next few months a set of proposals that deal with both full cost of attendance for scholarships, multi-year grants for student athletes in Division I, and any other support areas that we think would be beneficial to our student athletes so that they can be successful as students and as athletes. There was also discussions about how we manage our resources as effectively as possible to keep them focused on all of those ends, recognizing that these are very, very challenging times for universities and for the economy overall, and how do we make sure that we're using our dollars as efficiently and effectively as we can. So with that, let me pause and answer any questions that you might have. Excuse me, if I could ask, it'd be useful if you could identify for me where you're from, too. I've been doing that all day long with presidents, so. Hey, Bob.
Curious how much acceptance there seems to be, or how much interest there seems to be in the potential to possibly, I know people call it pay to play, but for offering the, whatever it is, the stipends or the full scholarship.
There's an absolute, complete consensus that we will never move to pay for play. No one, including me, believes that paying student athletes is even remotely appropriate in the collegiate model. We talk directly about that. There's not a single president that I've ever met that thinks that that's an appropriate thing to do, and certainly not this group here. Now, what we are interested in is seeing whether or not we can close the gap between the full cost of going to school and the size of the stipend that's available now. That's been a discussion point for years, and there's a very deep interest in doing that, at least among a number of the conferences, and I think we'll probably find a way to do that. But that's one of the steps we're going to have to take in the coming months.
Mike.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Can you talk a little bit, I mean, is this going to be in addition to what athletes can get from Pell Grants, or in place of that, or what?
Yeah, we don't have a full proposal right now, but what we really need to do is say, look, here's what the realistic costs are of going to school. A grant and aid is tuition fees, room and board, books and supplies, as you know, but then there's also a variety of ancillary costs that are associated with going to school. And so we're going to put together a working group that will bring back to the board, preferably at the October, but no later than the January meeting, to define exactly what that looks like and how individual conferences, should they want to opt into that model, they can do so, but not make it mandatory for every conference to provide that stipend.
Some schools, the full cost of attendance, some
Yes, there is. That's one of the variables we need to work out is how do you, if we go in that direction, how do you not allow that to become have huge implications for competitive equity and not have people game that system. Hey, Brad.
A lot of the clients, it's only some conferences are providing that, others aren't. How can we like the level playing field, I guess?
Yeah, one of the things we'll have to do is pay attention to that as we move forward, and of course people are concerned about it. But the fact is that there's huge variation inside Division I right now. So we have, one of the things we discussed is that we have athletic departments with $5 million budgets, total budgets, and $145 million total budgets. And so schools have huge variations right now in a number of the things that they can provide for student athletes in terms of training and facilities and the game day environment and all of that. And so most people think that a change in that basic scholarship structure wouldn't have much of an impact on competitive equity, but it's something we want to watch. Yeah, I think there's a general sympathy with the notion. Again, different institutions, different conferences want to apply that perhaps in different ways. But what I want to see is if we can create a model that would allow conferences that wanted to opt into a multi-year scholarship model, they can do so. It could be very beneficial to our students, and I think there was general support for it. Yeah, I wouldn't say different rules, but clearly part of what there's a strong appetite for and a commitment to is to find ways to allow us to be more flexible, recognizing the huge variation in the size, role, scope, and mission, and just the different universities that we have all under that umbrella, and that all of our one-size-fits-all rules don't really work when you've got schools as different as a small liberal arts college and a great big state university. Those are very different kinds of programs.
Can you talk a little about ways of bringing in costs? Because I know the staff was concerned of some schools in disparity, like you said, between $5 million budget and $145 million budget.
Yeah, I think the key is that every university president right now is trying to figure out how do they deploy their resources as effectively as they can. We talked a good bit about what that might look like, and we'll be continuing to do so. But this is really about how do you manage the resources that are available that are coming into intercollegiate athletics to support that collegiate model. There's always a lot of discussion about the huge variation between budgets, but those are predominantly functions of the marketplace, and I don't think anyone wants to disrupt that marketplace. Yes. Hey, Aaron.
Along with CMI, talking about costs and very consistent schools, it's not in a lot of schools how cumbersome this process is as we're trying to keep up with all NCAA rules and compliance. Is there any talk today about streamlining that?
There wasn't today, but there will be tomorrow. It's one of the key issues on the agenda. I don't think there's anybody that disagrees that the NCAA rule book is too complex and too big, and the question is always, well, then what do you do about it? I think that we're very likely to come out tomorrow with a very aggressive strategy for dealing with some of that complexity. It's far too complex today. Yes, Stu?
Just in talking about the increase in the support for the athletes, are you saying, did you hear equal support from the $5 million budget schools that you did from the higher end schools?
Well, it's clear that for different conferences and different institutions, having that opportunity would be more or less attractive depending on their financial situation. So we were talking about it in the context of being permissive, not mandatory. So that if a conference, for example, decides that that's something they want to support and they can determine the right way to pay for it, then that would be great. But they don't necessarily have to do it. And I think people are comfortable with that general idea that some would pursue that model and some wouldn't. Yeah.
Terry Hudson,
Hey, Terry.
Indianapolis Star. In the financial sustainability, was there any talk over concerns over escalating coaches' salaries?
No, I think that the general issue is making sure again that resources are being deployed as effectively as they can be to support that collegiate model. The marketplace for salaries is the marketplace for salaries, whether it's reporters or coaches or NCAA presidents, and so everyone recognizes that those market realities exist. Okay. Yes.
Now you talked about bringing some proposals to the board. How soon
Yes.
do you think some of those numbers come up?
We're talking months, not years. Again, I can't overstate the sense of urgency that we all feel about these things. So my hope is that we can bring proposals back to the board either in October or at our January meeting, but months, not years. We have a tradition in the NCAA of having things take too long, and we need to get these things done quickly. Some of them will likely be slightly disruptive in the way we do the process, but we've got to move the process forward. And by the way, I have Ed Ray, the president of Oregon State University, here, and he's chair of the NCAA Executive Committee. And if you have questions for him, he could talk about that as well.
Can you talk a little bit, Mark, just about, there's also been a tradition in the NCAA of having a lot of discussions like this and not a lot happening after these discussions. How do you intend to make sure that, beyond another committee saying, hey, we're going to make these recommendations?
Yeah, I think that there is a clear commitment on my part and on the part of all the presidents that we convert the conversations to action and that we do so rapidly. People are really in a mood to make significant changes, and I think that's exactly what you're going to see. We'll have to do it deliberatively and thoughtfully, of course, because you don't want to do things in a knee-jerk fashion. But doing them thoughtfully doesn't mean they can't be done rapidly. So again, we're talking about months, not years. Okay? All right. Any questions for President Ray? Hearing none? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.